And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this half hour. Welcome into Action News at 5:30. I'm Lee Conklin.
And I'm Christian Brown. Tonight we continue our series, Sex Trafficking Exposed. We've already learned that missing children and runaways are at a high risk of being trafficked. Now we look into why the state of Ohio isn't prosecuting men who buy sex.
Washington Bureau Chief Jacqueline Policastro searches for answers from one of the nation's top trafficking researchers, Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine.
Dr. Celia Williamson's life is dedicated to helping victims of sex trafficking, victims who have suffered through unbelievable trauma like this.
Every day you go in and sometimes you're raped and you're beaten, or sometimes your trafficker has to punish you and chain you outside on the porch naked all night in the winter because you defied him and broke the rule.
Williamson's office at the University of Toledo is decorated with diplomas, but also gracious notes of thanks from victims. An angel of hope hangs from the window, even though Williamson says we're losing the battle against sex trafficking.
The three largest illegal enterprises in the world are guns, drugs, and human trafficking. Which business do you want to be in? Guns and drugs, where we know exactly where to look, how to prosecute it, and we arrest the right people? Or do you want to be in human trafficking where you can sell your victim over and over?
Williamson spearheaded a 2012 study about domestic sex trafficking in Ohio, funded by the Department of Justice and sponsored by the Attorney General's Ohio Human Trafficking Commission. We looked through the study, and as we printed off the pages, there were more questions than answers. Like, who's buying sex from children in our community?
The pervert living under the bridge doesn't have money. So who's purchasing? Men.
Victims in the study identified city employees, police officers, lawyers, social workers, politicians, priests, and accountants. So I talked to Attorney General Mike DeWine about it.
It was quite shocking when we looked at that report where many of the victims reported that the people who were purchasing sex were involved in law enforcement.
As the state's lead attorney, can you tell me why aren't we prosecuting people who are buying sex?
Historically, we have prosecuted the prostitutes, but not prosecuted the men who are buying the sex.
Back in Williamson's office, she says that's not enough, adding she thinks people who are serious about ending trafficking need to be serious about prosecuting men who buy sex.
If you end demand, you end trafficking. If you try to bite into supply all the time, there always will be supply. There always will be vulnerable people that can be trafficked.
And vulnerability is what every sex trafficking victim shares. That's why Williamson says she will continue to fight for young girls in our community. Reporting in Toledo, Jacqueline Policastro, 13 ABC, Action News.
And coming up tomorrow, the final story in our series, Sex Trafficking Exposed. Jacqueline returns to Washington to find out what's being done about the problem at the national level.